Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today we're going to talk about Fort Carroll, that crazy little island fort out in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. You can see it if you're driving over the Key Bridge. I'm not there yet. The idea is we're going to get into one of the boats behind me. Right now I'm on the docks of the downtown sailing center, and we're going to head on out and for a close-up view of the fort. I'm going to be joined today by a sailor here, Elizabeth Trung. We're going to see if we can make it out there without getting too wet. But before we head on out, I thought I'd say a few words about the fort and then turn it over to Elizabeth to say a few words about the downtown sailing center. The fort was completed in 1850, but the idea for it started way before then. The idea started just after the War of 1812. Fort McHenry did a good job of protecting Baltimore from the British, and James Madison, President Madison, thought that we needed more forts on more port cities in case of further invasions. This fort got started in 1848, so it took a little while, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers turned to a young Army officer named Robert E. Lee to lead the effort in building it. Lee, in fact, did build it. It's named after Charles Carroll of Carrollton, the signer of the Declaration of Independence from Baltimore. Incidentally, after completing the fort, Lee went on to become the superintendent of West Point, the U.S. Army Military Academy, and then, of course, defected and joined the Confederacy as one of their leading generals. So the fort was completed before the Civil War. It never got all the cannons it really needed, but it never saw any action either. The Confederacy never invaded Baltimore by water. Our next war was the Spanish-American War in the late 1800s. By that time, the cannons were obsolete, and the U.S. Army chose then to upgrade them, and they did that. We got a whole new set of armaments there. The problem was, by the time they got done, it was around 1900, right as the Spanish-American War was ending, and the fort never saw action then either. You'd think maybe it would see action in World War I, maybe the Germans would invade, but no, and in fact the Army was so confident that the Germans would not invade Baltimore that they pulled all of those new guns off and used them elsewhere. In World War II, they were also confident we wouldn't be invaded, and they used the fort as a firing range. Somewhere along in there, the U.S. Army decided that they really didn't need Fort Carroll anymore and offered it up for sale. We had a mayor back then, Browning, and Mayor Browning decided he had an idea for it. He would put an enormous neon sign that said, "Welcome to Baltimore," on the fort, and then erect an enormous statue of Lord Baltimore next to it. If that sounds kind of like the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor, everybody else thought it did too, and we only needed one of those, so Mayor Browning's idea never got any traction. Finally, in 1958, the Army found a buyer. They found a buyer in a gentleman named Benjamin Eisenberg. He paid $10,000 for the fort, but his plans for development never came to fruition. The last time I think there was a serious effort to develop it was a local developer, Bill Streever, about 15 years ago. He had an idea to build a conference center there. There were some challenges for sure. One is that it is an island accessible only by water. Number two is it had been vacant for 75 years. And number three was that, well, the Army firing range left a lot of ordinances that need to be cleaned up. But maybe the biggest challenge was the birds. There are a lot of birds that nest there, and many of them are protected under Maryland law. So whatever development would have had to happen would have had to have a lot of coordination with the Department of Natural Resources. The conference center idea never made it either, and to my knowledge, we have now got this fort that's been abandoned for 100 years and likely will be in the foreseeable future. But before we head on out, let me turn it over to Elizabeth to say a few words about the Downtown Sailing Center.
Hi, Johns. Hi, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Trung. I'm a sailor here at the Downtown Sailing Center. Welcome to the Downtown Sailing Center. We are a community sailing center. What that means is that we are not a yacht club. We are not here to be fancy. We are here to sail. If you come down, you're going to walk down to our A dock, and you'll see on this side of the docks, you'll see our cruising boats. They're bigger. They take you out past the Key Bridge, where Johns is going to take us today. On this side, we've got our day fleet. It's the J22 fleet, and back there we've got accessible sailing dinghies. These boats are available for new sailors, day sailors. We welcome all types of sailors, whether you are brand new, whether you don't know anything about sailing and you want to sail, or whether you love racing sailboats. We welcome everybody. So that's the Downtown Sailing Center. Come check us out.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. And as they say, all aboard. We're going to head out. If the next time you see us, we are soaking wet, something dramatically bad has happened. But I know Elizabeth is a good sailor. But just in case, maybe cross your fingers, and we'll see you soon. Well, holy cow, we made it out here. We are dry. Our captain has done a fabulous job. Behind me is Fort Carroll. Up close, you can kind of see the where the cannons were, those bottom square holes. You can see a lookout tower on the far side, and we're getting about as close as you can get. I think the Coast Guard doesn't want you to get off on the island, and with all the bird guano, you might not want to get off on the island. But we've had a great afternoon. I am going to say with thanks, turn it over to Elizabeth to have maybe one more word before we head back.
Hi, Johns. Hi, everybody. We're out here by Fort Carroll, and Johns had asked me, how did I get into sailing? I told him that 6 years ago, I was in a hospital bed recovering from a health crisis, and during that time, I made a list of all the adventures that I would go on after getting out of the hospital bed. The first on my list was learning how to sail. So after I got out of the hospital bed, I went down to the downtown sailing center, met some really great people, very kind, very loving, and they taught me how to sail. And because of that, that illness and, that sailing adventure and meeting all those people, I'm here today able to see Fort Carroll. And so I hope you all come down to the downtown sailing center, get on one of our boats and come out here and see Fort Carroll.